Join us in appreciating the sponsors of today's Vision of Asia. We'll return right after these messages. Acharya Shankar is known to have helped preserve the structure of Indian cultural heritage by rejuvenating Bharat through his great intellect and soulful approach. He lived in the human form for only 32 years, but his presence still plays an important role through his commendable commentaries on major scriptures and his original poems in the form of stotras. Acharya Shankar walked on earth over 1200 years ago, but he founded the Dashmani Sannyas tradition. Members of Samvit Sadhyanya organized an event to mark the birth anniversary of Acharya Shankar in New Jersey last weekend. Senior disciple of Swami Sri Ishwarananda Giriji Maharaj, Dr. Balaji Srinivasan, addressed on this occasion. Here's a brief report on Acharya Shankar's birth anniversary.
Jai Jai Shankar, Hara Hara Shankar, Jai Jai Shankar, Hara Hara Shankar. Shruti Smriti Puranana Anayam Karunanayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Gauri Nandana Gajanana Parvati Nandana Gajanana Gauri Nandana Gajanana Vishwamul se spandita ho ghan mahamol ne जन्म लिया था शंकर ने अवतार लिया था प्रस्थान त्रय भाष्य बनाकर प्रस्थान त्रय भाष्य बनाकर परिक्रमण त्रय भारत का कर परिक्रमण त्रय भारत का शुष्क शून्य शंकित मानव को शुष्क शून्य शंकित मानव को निश्रेयस का मार्ग दिया था निश्रेयस का मार्ग दिया था संवित पद का लक्ष्य दिया था संवित पद का लक्ष्य दिया था विश्वमूल से स्पंदित हो घन महामौल ने जन्म लिया था शंकर ने अवतार लिया था.
Shankara in fact went to the root of the Vedic tradition and decided, instead of rejecting religion, instead of rejecting yajna, instead of rejecting ritual, instead of rejecting puja, instead of rejecting temples, he used the Veda to breathe life into all of them. That was the genius of Shankara. The Shankara's genius was that he is able to take what is happening in society and cast it in the way it is meant to be cast. Rejecting it all and providing a third alternative would have been a much easier way to do things. What Shankara did was, so Shankara, what he did was he breathed life and then he integrated all these things. How do you include puja in your life? How do you include going to the temple in your life? How do you include penance in your life, but not make any of them an end in its own? And how do you instead go to a much higher ideal? That integration is what I really want to talk about today, and in Sanskrit that's called samanvaya. Samanvaya means integration. It means giving one meaning to apparently disconnected things. And if you think about life, that's the problem, right? Life appears very disconnected. Shankara says in the world there is a clue on how to rearrange it to make sense of it. That is called samanvaya. Take this world around you that appears to be so disconnected in so many apparently meaningless parts and do samanvaya. Give it one meaning. That's the genius of Shankara. The genius of Shankara is to look into the Veda and say this is what really the Veda is teaching us. Not religion, not some god, not some puja, not some meditation, nothing. It is teaching us how to make sense of ourselves, of the world, and this so-called God. How these appear to be disconnected. How do you make sense of all this stuff? How do you give one meaning to the world around you, to yourself, and to God, that it all makes sense? Giving that one meaning to everything such that it all makes sense is called samanvaya. So the problem is, Shankara looked into the Veda and understood that the Veda is talking only about samanvaya. When Vedavyasa wrote what's called, I would say, the Brahma Sutras, which is supposed to be the axiomatic definition of the Veda, he had one axiom: Tattu Samanvayat. That means if you want to recognize him, recognize by doing samanvaya of everything. There's no other way. You can't go on a narrow way and recognize him. To recognize him, you have to integrate everything. You can't reject anything at all. This depth Shankara realized, but then how to teach the people? How do you teach people things? So teaching is a very difficult thing. We had just gone to Carnegie Mellon actually, and we had gone to their art department, and there are lots of professors there. And one I was just reading the blogs of all the professors, and one professor's blog, I saw a very nice quote that reminded me of Shankara. It is a quote from Alexander Pope, who is a 18th century English poet. He said, men must be taught as if you taught them not. Men must be taught as if you taught them not. If you try to teach something as if you're teaching something to somebody, you can be sure the other person won't get it. Because it's too oppressive. It's too oppressive to be taught. And it certainly would have been too oppressive for Shankara to start going around giving pravachans and lectures to everybody. It just would not have been possible in that. So then if you have to teach them as if you taught them not, what are the ways of teaching? Well, one way teaching is by telling. You tell people things, okay? The second way is by example. Your whole life becomes a demonstration of a certain truth. That is one way of teaching. The third, much higher way is that the master shows the student that you are exemplary. The master doesn't set the example. He shows the student that the student himself is the example. Shankara taught by demonstration. The Lord Dakshinamurti teaches by showing that you are the example. Shankara had to show by demonstration and lead us to the Lord Dakshinamurti, to a much higher ideal, beyond any human being. But Shankara had to demonstrate that truth of the Veda for us.
ಶಂಕರಾಚಾರ್ಯ ನಿನಗೆ